So discussion boards are another tool that you have available to you in Canvas, and they are very popular in online courses because it gives you a way for you to communicate. Students interact with each other, and that's much more difficult in an online course than it is in a face-to-face course. I do want to take a minute and point out to you that they're not the only tool in your arsenal, and it is very, very easy to have discussion board burnout if you're not careful. So use them wisely. Think hard about how you want to do it, and it can be burnout for the students. It can also be burnout for you because they can be a little more challenging to grade. If you participate in the discussions and are in their reading and doing all of that. So I've got a couple examples. The introduction, we kind of looked at this in the modules, icebreaker type of discussion where the students are just introducing themselves to the class. If you choose not to do an about your instructor, you could introduce yourself as part of the discussion. So you could do that. And then I have, let's go back to modules here. Another one that I've set up down here, which is a discussion here. Now, how to get them into, I'll look at that closer in a minute, but to get them in, you can, I said, click plus, go to discussion, and either add a new discussion or pick one that's already been created. I'm going to take a look at this one here that I've set up. When you are doing the discussion, you have a lot of different options available to you. You're going to give thorough instructions on what you want them to discuss. Be explicit on what you'll be looking for when you're grading them. And what sort of interactions they're required to have with their classmates. And there's different options for that, but you've got choices. I'm going to hit edit here and take a look. You can, said, have different options here. Graded is probably the one that if you're going to grade the discussion, go ahead and click graded because then it shows up in assignments and also goes into your gradebook. If you don't click that, then it won't go into assignments. So you do want to do that. Although, did you notice here that add the student to do, that little to-do list on the right-hand side? So if it's not graded, it could still show up there. But you're going to get better participation if it is a graded discussion. You can also force them to post before they see anyone else's reply. So that way you're ensured that they're not looking at each other. Sometimes that works great, sometimes it doesn't, because you might end up everybody posting about the same thing, whereas if you let them see other replies, you can force them to come up with something different. So think about how you're using it. Groups are a feature of Canvas. You can do group discussions. That puts them into small groups, okay? And you have to define the groups or let them define the groups. And the discussion would happen within a small subset of your class. You don't need to do a group discussion if it's the whole class, okay? So don't get those confused. You set the number of points to whatever you want it to be. We'll go with 50 here. For that, and you can again pick how it's displayed because it's graded. If you have an assignment group for grouped weighting, you can pick where you want it to go. I don't happen to have one for discussions, and pick a date. So you have all of those, and you can hit save. Now, I didn't look at rubrics for assignments. I probably should have, but rubrics show up a little bit differently. Well, oh. Oops, there we go. Rubrics show up a little bit differently for discussions. So you can click on up here on the snowman and choose add rubric. And a lot of classes, if you're doing discussions, you may use the same rubric for every discussion. So you could click add rubric, and if you want to set it up for the first one, you can set it up here, tell it use it for assignment grading, and do all of that. Or if you've already set one up for one discussion, you can choose find a rubric and then go to wherever you have your rubrics and pick a rubric. Okay, so I don't happen to have a good discussion rubric in here right now, so I'm not going to do that. But you could, like I said, once you've set that up, you can just pull that in for each of your assignments. Keep in mind how you're approaching your discussions, because they can really be a time sink when you're teaching an online course. If you are actively participating in those discussions, going in and reading and commenting and directing, that takes a while. And there are discussions where you need to be doing that, but there's probably also discussions where you don't necessarily need to be doing that. And you have the option of using SpeedGrader. Let's see if it'll let me. Yeah, go to SpeedGrader here. I won't have any posts because this isn't a real class. It's my sandbox. But you'll see the student, and you would see their primary post, and you would see any comments that they made on other posts, but it would be standalone. And you could comment here on their post as opposed to creating a submission. So that can be a little bit of a quicker way to grade discussions. You don't see the full interactions, but you can move through it quickly. And then if you do choose to do that, you would have the option of maybe doing like a wrap up. So you could send an announcement up, just basically summarizing the sort of things that were discussed. So those are kind of your options as far as grading. And if you had the rubric would show up here, which could, again, speed up your grading. And just one last thing I want to take a look at with I'll go here. Okay, so when you set up that discussion, it shows up in the discussion section. If it's graded, it is also going to show up under assignments, okay? And anything in assignments will go into the grade book. So let's see, where did I have that one? Here, types of assignments, okay? So that'll show up there. So that is it for discussions.